So if you only had $30 to spend at Aldi, could you put together 4 full meals, 4 hearty and delicious meals to feed your family? Well, in today's video, I am doing just that. So I'm going to show you how I managed to do that by shopping smart and tapping into my well-stocked pantry. Let's get into it. So I shopped at Aldi, sticking to a budget of $30 and, more importantly, sticking to my shopping list. I already knew what I wanted to serve my family this week. The plan was I was going to make orange chicken, I was going to make chicken pot pie, I was going to make chicken gnocchi soup, and I was also going to make chicken parmesan. So I knew what I needed to get to prepare those 4 meals. And I also had already shopped my shelves, checked out my pantry and my fridge to see what items did I have that I didn't have to pick up while I was out. So sticking to my list was really important, but also shopping my shelves before I headed for the store. And since I knew I was going to make 4 chicken heavy dishes, meaning that chicken was going to be the protein source for my meals, I wanted to be able to find a large pack of chicken at a fairly good price. So I found this almost 5 pounds of chicken. It's 4.5 pounds, $2.49 a pound, and the price for this pack was $11.18. And so I can make the 4 meals from this pack of chicken. Now, what else did I need to pick up while I was there? Well, I use a lot of carrots, celery, and onion when I'm cooking. So I did need to pick up some celery because I had used up most of what I had. So I picked up this pack of celery. And then I am always in need of more carrots because I use a lot of carrots, and I'm definitely going to be using carrots in that chicken pot pie, as well as I may put a few carrots in my orange chicken because we're going to have a vegetable stir fry with that, and then might drop some in that gnocchi soup. We'll see, but I always need more carrots. And then I needed some baby spinach for the gnocchi soup, so I had to pick that up. And then half and half for the chicken pot pie as well as for the gnocchi soup. Parmesan cheese. And then some tomato sauce. So I picked up a can of diced tomatoes and this small can of tomato sauce. And then for the chicken parmesan, I'm going to be needing some mozzarella cheese and some provolone cheese. And I'm thinking I needed this cheddar cheese for something I was going to make. So I ended up picking up this pack of cheddar cheese. It was on the list, but I can't remember now what it was supposed to be for. So here's the cheese. Now here's something that I splurged on. And I did that because for you young homemakers or your busy homemakers out there, you may not have time to make your own pie crust for the chicken pot pie. And Aldi's has these lovely pie crusts. You get 2 in a box. And all you have to do is take them out of the box, roll them out, make sure they fit your pie dish, and you're good to go. So I did pick up this box. And as part of my pantry staples, which includes my refrigerator, I do like to keep at least 1 box of ready-to-go pie crust in the fridge for just in case. And then something else that I needed that I was not able to get at Aldi was this gnocchi. They were right now temporarily out of gnocchi, so I did stop at Kroger on the way home and I picked up this pack of gnocchi. Now let me just put a plug in here right now for my 20-item capsule grocery haul, because with my 20-item capsule grocery haul, I've always got things in my pantry, either in my freezer, my fridge, my working pantry, or my extended pantry, which I can pull together a meal, meaning that if there's something additional that I typically need, like the gnocchi, I usually have that on the shelf. But I made some green bean chicken and gnocchi soup for a cousin a couple of weeks ago, and I used my last pack. So I was out of that. And then I also like to always keep pasta, tomato products, and other things like that on my shelf. But I've been using a lot of those and I'm running low, so I thought today I'd go ahead and pick up some of these tomato products while I was there. And then whereas the pot pie calls for heavy cream, when I looked at the price for heavy cream, I decided we're going to go with half and half for all the different recipes that need cream in it. So this is what I've got. So these are the things that I have picked up this week for my 4 chicken main dishes. And as I make each dish, I will share with you what was the purchased items from the grocery haul and what was pantry items, because again, I want to encourage all of my homemakers to pick up 1 or 2 pantry staples each time they go to the grocery store, so that being able to pull from your pantry is going to be a whole lot easier. This video is brought to you by Aprondiva. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. Visit us at www.aprondiva.com. So to get the prep started, I had to determine which of the chicken breast was going to be for the chicken parmesan and which was going to be for the other dishes. For the chicken gnocchi and the chicken pot pie, that has to be cooked chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and put the chicken breast that I'm going to use for those recipes into a pan, season it up, add a little bit of carrot, onion, and celery. A little chicken broth, and then put it in the oven and let it just roast until done. So for the orange chicken, I need 2 large chicken breasts. And these chicken breasts are so large, I'm thinking 1.5 will do. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them into bite-sized pieces and put them in a large freezer bag and set it aside until I'm ready to put the marinade in. Let's see how this roasted chicken is coming along. When it comes out, I'll cut those into bite-sized pieces, leaving me with 2.5 to 3 cups of chicken breast for each recipe. This chicken has cooled off, so I'm going to cut it into bite-sized pieces. I need 2 cups of chicken for both the chicken pot pie and the chicken gnocchi soup. So let's see if we've got enough for that. There's 1 cup and there's a 2nd cup. So here's about 2 cups of chicken for the chicken gnocchi soup. Now we'll get out this other chicken for the pot pie. Looks like I got a cup here, so I've got just a little bit shy of 2 cups for this one. But that will work, because the pot pie will be filled with other goodness as well. So the pot pie and the gnocchi soup are certainly one of those dishes where if you had to skimp on the chicken, you could. So here are those two, and then this is what was left in the skillet. The carrots are delicious. So I'll take those carrots out and save them to go in with one of the other dishes, maybe the stir fry. Maybe the gnocchi soup, we'll see. But I won't be tossing these. It's not like I cooked it so long that all the flavor and nutrients were drained out of the carrots. Nope, these carrots are still pretty tasty. So I just wanted to show you the difference between the amount of chicken that I'll be using for each meal. So for the chicken parm, I've got 4 good-sized chicken breasts in here. So we'll have that for one meal. For the orange chicken, you can see I've got a good amount of cut-up chicken in here. This was about another 2 good-sized chicken breasts in here. And then I use smaller chicken breast pieces for the chicken pot pie and for the gnocchi soup. So you can see you can really stretch a meal when you go with the soup or stew because you need less meat because you've got other goodies in there with it. So I'm going to get these in the fridge or in the freezer until I'm ready to work with them. Now, I absolutely love Chinese food, but one of the ways we've been saving money is to do takeout at home. So for today's meal, I am making an orange chicken similar to what I get when I go to Panda Express. So here's the chicken. I needed 2 large chicken breasts cut up into 1.5-inch pieces. So here's the chicken that I've already prepped. And then we need some olive oil, some cornstarch, a little garlic, an orange, some brown sugar, salt, pepper, and other ingredients like soy sauce and lemon juice, orange juice, some rice vinegar and flour, and of course some rice. So now all of these things here for the most part are pantry items. I always keep garlic in my spice pantry, as well as salt, pepper, various kinds of spices, as well as the cornstarch and flour. The OJ I keep in the fridge because of course we have that for breakfast, and the olive oil I tend to keep because I use it to cook with. So I am stretching this budget by tapping on my well-stocked pantry to make this orange chicken. So the first thing I need to do is to make the sauce, the glaze, and then we're going to marinate the chicken for a couple of hours. So let's get that started. First thing I need to do is add 1.5 cups water to a pot, rice vinegar, lemon juice, 2.5 teaspoons of soy sauce, and 2 teaspoons of orange juice. I need 1 tablespoon of orange zest and 1 teaspoon of garlic. Once the sauce comes together, I stir in the brown sugar, green onions, a bit of orange zest, fresh ginger and garlic. Then I bring it all to a boil. When it starts bubbling, I pull it off the heat and let it cool for about 15 minutes. I need about a cup of this for the marinade, so I pour that off and stick it in the fridge to chill. The rest of the sauce gets set aside for later. Now for the chicken. I tuck the pieces into an airtight bag, pour in the cooled marinade, give it a little shake to coat everything, then seal it up and pop it in the fridge for about 2 hours. That gives us time to work on the rest. I go ahead and get the rice started. 1½ cups of rice, 3 cups of water, just a pinch of salt, and a teaspoon of butter all goes into the rice cooker. While that's going, I stir fry whatever veggies I've got on hand. Today, it was some frozen broccoli, carrots, onion, celery, and a handful of sugar snap peas I found hanging out in the fridge. Once they're tender and bright, I set those aside. Now back to the chicken. I mix up a little flour, salt, and pepper in a brown paper bag because I'm out of my big Ziploc bags and, you got to use what you've got. I drain the marinade and toss the chicken into the bag. Give it a good shake and coat everything nicely. Then, piece by piece, I drop the chicken into a hot skillet with a bit of olive oil. I let it cook until it's golden and crispy on both sides. Then I transfer it to a plate lined with paper towels. I wipe out the skillet and pour in the reserved sauce, letting it come to a gentle boil over medium-high heat. In a small bowl, I whisk together 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of water until smooth, then stir that into the sauce to thicken it up. I drop the chicken back into the skillet, turn down the heat to medium-low, and let it simmer until everything is tender and the sauce is glossy and beautiful. Time to plate. I scoop about a ½ cup of rice onto each plate, top it with the orange chicken, and tuck the stir-fried veggies on the side. This meal came together for under $5, or about $1.25 a plate, and let me tell you, it was every bit as good as takeout. Today I'm making a creamy chicken gnocchi soup that comes together with a few pantry staples and some of the grocery haul finds, and it's just perfect for those cooler days or for a cozy night at home. I start by prepping my veggies, carrots, onions, and celery, the classic trio. I give everything a good scrub, peel the carrots, and I save the peelings in a bowl to make veggie broth later. Once those are peeled and ready, I give everything a rough chop. Now I did forget to film the onion, celery, and garlic part, but if you've been here for a while, you've seen me do it plenty of times. With my veggies ready, I drizzle about 2 tablespoons of olive oil into a hot brazier and saute everything until it softens and my kitchen is smelling amazing. Then it's time to season. I'm using thyme, parsley, and oregano, all dried from last year's kitchen garden, so that's no extra cost to me there. I also toss in a little of Miss Leona's house seasoning. I'll link her video in this description box so you can see how to make it yourself. And I also throw in a bit of poultry seasoning that I mixed up myself as well. Once the veggies are seasoned, I pour in about 4 cups of homemade chicken broth and stir in some cooked chicken breast that I had set aside earlier in the week, already chopped into bite-sized pieces. I let that simmer, then give it a taste. For us, the seasoning is just right, but you'll want to adjust it to your family's preference. Next, I add in the gnocchi. This was part of my grocery haul, and then I let that simmer for about 5 minutes so the gnocchi can cook through. Then I stir in some fresh spinach, also from the haul, and pour in 2½ cups of half and half. That creaminess just brings the whole thing together. Once the spinach wilts down, I pull the pot off the heat, and I must say the soup smells absolutely amazing. To go with the soup, I made a quick garlic cheese bread. Just 4 slices of bread, buttered and sprinkled with garlic powder, Italian seasoning, a little more of Miss Leona's house seasoning, and then topped with shredded cheese. I popped them into the oven until the cheese was melted and bubbly. Once done, I cut each slice into thirds and served them right alongside the soup. It was so delicious, hearty, creamy, comforting. My husband loved it, and the garlic cheese bread really stretched the meal. This pot of soup serves 6, and altogether, including the garlic cheese bread, the whole dinner came to about $5 total. That's just about $1 a person. You can find this recipe on allrecipes.com, and I'll link it in the description box. Next up, chicken parmesan. Perfect for weeknights or Sunday dinner. Today's recipe is chicken parmesan, and I am using Chef John's recipe from All Recipes. And these are the chicken breasts that I put aside from that Aldi grocery haul. We also need some mozzarella cheese, some provolone cheese, some Parmesan cheese, and then we're going to need a little salt, a little pepper, some tomato sauce, a couple of eggs, and some olive oil. And we also need some fresh basil, which I've got growing out on the patio, and I'll bring that in when I'm ready to use that. The other thing we need is panko breadcrumbs, which I did not have any of, but what I did have was some bread that a friend had given me, and I hadn't used it all up. And so what I did was put that bread into the food processor, made it into crumbs, put it in the oven and baked it, and made my own panko breadcrumbs. So I was able to have that ingredient as well. And we're going to serve it on spaghetti, which I always have spaghetti in my pantry, so that's going to be one of my pantry staples, and a green salad on the side. And I'm going to be pulling that stuff from my fridge as well. So let's get that started. So the first thing I have to do is pound these chicken breasts. I want to make them about 1/2 inch all the way around. And I don't have a meat mallet, but I do have this little sieve press for when I'm making applesauce. So the goal is to try to get them about the same size. And there's 4 chicken breasts, so there'll be 4 servings. To limit how much I'm handling things, I start by putting together the breadcrumb mixture. That's 1 cup of my homemade panko breadcrumbs and 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, mixed together and set aside. Next, I beat 2 eggs in a shallow bowl and set that aside too. Then I'm back to the chicken. I lay each breast on wax paper and season it well with salt and pepper. To coat it lightly in flour, I use a sieve, and it takes a little bit of practice, but it does give a nice even coating on both sides. From there, I dip the flour-dusted chicken into the beaten eggs, and then press both sides into the breadcrumb mixture. Each piece gets the same treatment, and then I let them rest for about 15 minutes before frying. For frying, I pour about 1/2 inch of olive oil into a large skillet and heat it until it starts to shimmer. That's your cue that the oil is hot and ready. I cook the chicken about 2 minutes per side until it's golden and crisp. Once that's done, I transfer the chicken to a baking dish. Each piece gets a couple of spoonfuls of tomato sauce, a layer of mozzarella, some fresh basil, and provolone cheese. I sprinkle extra Parmesan on top and drizzle each with a bit of olive oil. Then it all goes into a 450-degree oven where it bakes until the cheese is bubbly and browned. I use a meat thermometer to double check doneness. We're looking for an internal temperature of about 165 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't always show it on camera, but just so you know, I do wash my hands frequently when working with raw meat. It's just one of those things I handle off screen to keep things moving. This dish serves 4, and with grocery haul items plus pantry staples, comes in at about $5 total, or around $1.25 per person. For the pot pie, I kept it simple and used a store-bought crust from the hall. I rolled it out, fitted it into a pie dish, and set it aside. Then for the filling, I melted butter in my Dutch oven and added in chopped carrots, celery, and onion that I had prepped ahead. I followed that with diced potatoes and seasoned everything with pantry staples. Salt, pepper, poultry seasonings, my usual Miss Leona's house seasoning, and then some dried parsley and oregano from last year's herb garden. Once the veggies softened, I stirred in 4 tablespoons of flour and let it cook for a minute to take off that raw taste. Then I poured in 1½ cups of homemade chicken broth, made from my veggie scraps, and some milk and half and half. Aldi came through again. Half and half is a great swap for heavy cream, and it tastes just as rich. I added in some cooked chicken I had set aside earlier in the week and about a ½ cup of frozen peas from my freezer. Once everything was warmed through, I poured the mixture into the pie crust and topped it with the second crust. I fluted the edges, pricked the top with a fork to let the steam escape, and brushed it with an egg wash. And don't forget to set your pie on a baking dish just in case it bubbles over. That cleanup is no joke. Halfway through baking, I used a foil collar to keep the edges from getting too brown. Learned that the hard way too. This recipe is a KFC dupe. It's a copycat from the slow roasted Italian, and I'll link that in the description box below. It serves 6 and comes in under $5. This just goes to show you that you don't have to have a huge budget to put together hearty, delicious, and healthy meals for your family. But what you do need to have is a well-stocked pantry that you can pull from. So once again, I'm going to encourage my homemakers to pick up 1 or 2 items to put on your pantry shelf each time you go shopping. And remind you to check out my 20-item capsule grocery haul that will help you do that. For more budget-friendly meals, check out this video next.